Hello everyone. This is a tutorial to make a seed stitch cowl on the Zippy Loom. I'm pretty happy with how this particular stitch turned out on this loom. My cowl ended up with some great texture and I hope yours is too. So we'll be going over steps such as number 1, casting on with a double E-wrap. Number 2, lots of seed stitches, which means we'll be alternating knit stitches and purl stitches. And number 3, joining the first and last rows together. So for the different supplies you'll be needing a ball of number 7 yarn or even a ball of number 5 yarn if you want to use 2 strands like I did. You'll need 2 Zippy Looms since we'll be using 8 pegs. Also scissors, a hook, and a tapestry needle for the end. So let's begin by making a slip knot. You make a loop in your left hand. You take some yarn in your right hand and put that yarn through the loop, and then you tighten it up. You'll be putting the slip knot on peg 8 to cast on using the double E-wrap. So you'll wrap peg 8 one more time clockwise and knit over the bottom loop. And then you're going to wrap peg 7 back to front 2 times and you'll knit over. So you're basically going to be wrapping back to front to make 2 loops on all of the remaining pegs, and then you're going to, of course, knit over the bottom loop. So keep casting on just like this until you're done on peg number 1. And I try to make things a bit tighter than usual since these cast-ons tend to be a little bit loose. Okay, so now you're on peg 2 with the 2 loops, and then you're going to knit over that bottom one. And then finally peg 1. Okay, so you've now cast it on using the double E-wrap. Now it's time for lots of seed stitches. We will alternate knitting and purling, which means that peg 1, for example, will get knitted in row 1, but purled in row 2, knitted in row 3, and purled in row 4. I'm trying to help you visualize that in the chart. In any case, we'll do the first few rows together, peg by peg. So for peg 1, you're going to want to do an E-wrap knit. So you'll be wrapping it counterclockwise. And you will knit over. And for peg 2, you'll purl. So you want the yarn in front and below. You're going to use your hook to go under the loop on peg 2, and you're going to grab the working yarn, and you're going to make a new loop up top. You're going to remove the old loop and place the new loop on peg 2, and then you're going to tighten. Peg 3, it's your knit stitch, so you're going to knit that over. For peg 4, again, you put the working yarn below. With the hook, you're going to go under the loop from the top. You're going to grab the yarn with your hook and pull it upwards to make a new loop. Remove the old loop, place the new loop on the peg, and then tighten. Peg 5, you're going to do your E-wrap knit back to front, and you will knit over. Peg 7 again, you'll lay the working yarn below. With the hook, you'll go under the loop, and you'll grab that yarn. You'll pull it upwards to make a new loop. You'll remove the old loop and place the new loop on the peg and tighten. Peg 7 is your E-wrap back to front. So you'll knit over. And for peg 8, you put the yarn below with a hook. You're going to go under the loop. You're going to grab the working yarn, pull it upwards, making a new loop. you'll remove the old one off the peg, and you'll place the new loop on peg 8, and then you're going to tighten. So row 1 is done now. You have followed that sequence, knit, purl, knit, purl. Now for row 2, you will also do the knit, purl sequence, but this time from right to left. So for peg 8, you'll start with your knit stitch. So it's your E-wrap. So you're going to be knitting that over. And then peg 7, you will purl. Just remember that the old loop comes off and the new loop goes on. Peg 6, you're going to E-wrap back to front and knit over. And peg 5, you're going to purl. So peg 4, you're going to E-wrap again. And peg 3, you're going to purl. Peg 2, you're E-wrap knitting. You'll knit over. And peg 1, you're going to purl. And so now you have completed row 2. So I think at this point, you can knit and purl on your own. You'll be following the sequence, of course, knit, purl, knit, purl. That's going to create that great texture of the seed stitch. You can continue until you're about 22 inches or whatever your desired circumference is for your cowl. I find that that was a good length, at least for myself. It just fits over my head, so it fits nicely around my neck. Make sure you do end on peg 8 rather than peg 1. That's because when we're joining the ends together, we'll be using that loose end to tie a knot with your slip knot at that later stage. So keep knitting and purling, and when you're back, we'll be joining the ends together. So pause your video and come back soon. So now we're back together after you've done a lot of knitting and purling to the desired circumference of your cowl. It's now time to join the ends. So this next step is a little bit tricky because you will be taking the loops from your cast on row and placing them over your loom. So you're going to need to find those loops one by one. It might help to count out your 8 loops before you start sticking them on to make sure they are all there. Sometimes you have to do some searching to get the right loops. So we will now carefully place each loop on the loom. So now you should have 2 loops on every peg. So you'll knit over each loop. You may have to be a bit careful. The bottom loop tends to be quite tight and the top loop quite loose. So you may have to hold down that top loop so it doesn't come off at the same time as you're knitting over. Okay, so you're finally at peg 1, so you've knit that over. And now it's time for you to tie a knot with your working yarn and the loose end from your slip knot. So after that knot is tied, you're going to measure out your working yarn, just 2 lengths of the loom, not any longer, because if it's too long, it will just get in the way. As you'll see, it does get in my way in a couple of minutes. So since it's time to sew those ends together, you're going to take your yarn needle and you're going to thread it, and we'll be doing some sewing next. So we'll start on peg 8. You'll be putting your needle through the loop from the bottom and pulling upwards. And then on peg 7, you're going to be sewing instead from top to bottom and then pulling downwards. So you're going to keep alternating directions upwards and downwards until you finish and you're at peg 1. Okay, so upwards on peg 2 and downwards on peg 1. So next you're going to release the cowl from the loom very carefully, peg by peg. And you'll tighten the yarn because we want to make this seam as seamless as possible. So you're going to be pulling it a bit towards the left. And let's have a look at it now, which is wrong side out. I think it's not bad. And let's look at it right side out. We see it's coming out at one of the edges, but once we tie that knot and tighten that part up, it's going to be pretty seamless. So we're going to turn it back inside out so that we can weave in the ends. So you can find the shorter loose end and you can weave it in either using your fingers or a needle as you wish. I like to put mine through the side stitches and then afterwards work towards the interior of the garment. And then you can cut off any remaining yarn. So for the other side, we're tightening it up a little so it's not sticking out anymore. Again, you can use a needle or your fingers. I'm putting in my end through the side stitches. I'm going to cut off some yarn that's getting in the way. So you'll put it through the side stitches, and then you can also work it towards the interior of the cowl as well. So you'll cut off any remaining yarn, and now you have done your seed stitch cowl. So let's look at it right side out. I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty seamless. So now you can enjoy your newly made seed stitch cowl. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment, and please subscribe to my channel, Ms. Yarn.